Savage.
He wants you back, Dex. He's calling you back to the state of Florida, my guy.
Yeah, the sanity's coming back this way, and it's safer for kids. I got 3 kids in school.
Real talk, no filter on Savaged Unfiltered. Savaged.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to the show. Welcome to Savaged Unfiltered. I'm your host, Savage here, and joining us here again, guys, is Mark Alsip. He was on for part 1 here on the program, on the podcast here, and we're going to bring him on for part 2. In part 1, we kind of shared some of his story of how he was basically indoctrinated, I guess, at the age of 6 from members of the church there, and I guess other surrounding members there. And we learned that he broke free of that through science. And I want to learn more about that. I also want to touch a little bit more on the heartbeat, because we got into the heartbeat with frequency levels and through Mark's observation. Excuse me, get the words right, shaky. Through Mark's views and experience with that, we're just not hearing what we think we're hearing, the heartbeat. So I want to get more into that, because people are going to question that, and people are going to be puzzled with just the background of the heartbeat, and maybe it's not a heartbeat. Maybe it's actually the Doppler machines and the ultrasound machines. But I went into, guys, if you did hear part 1, I did go into a little bit of that, going back into biblical times, and even before biblical times, right? I mean, you can go back 8,000 years ago, where a lot of these machines were not available to man. So I do want to understand a little bit of the backstory of maybe Mark knows something that I don't know. It's good to question everything else. But without further ado, I want to bring in Mark. This is Mark Alsip here to the show of Savage Unfiltered. Mark, welcome back for part 2. How you doing, sir?
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Savage.
So I have a question for you. Okay, so we kind of touched on the entire indoctrination that you experienced at the age of 6. Okay, through the church, and you sort of broke free to that due to science. Now, you also state that you're also fighting for separation of church and state. Okay, and I want to touch a little bit of that here in the program, but I want to go a little further into what we discussed on part 1, if anybody missed that, with some of the indoctrination.
Sure.
Why do you feel you were indoctrinated? Because when you mention the terms indoctrinated, people are going to question that, and they should, because indoctrination is on so many different levels. There's grooming involved with children, with sexuality. There's that forms of indoctrination, right? There is indoctrination due to obviously religion and spirituality, indoctrination through politics. So let's start off with what you experienced in the church. Go into a little bit of that, sir, if you don't mind.
Sure. So when I say indoctrination, in my case, I am talking about being told literally I would burn in hell if I did not believe everything the church was teaching me, if I didn't take every teaching literally, even if those teachings contradicted science. And the opposite of that would be in science. There's no threat of burning or punishment if you don't believe something you learn in a class, right? But in church, I was actually threatened with eternal torture, and I was taught there was no other way to think than what my fundamentalist church taught. So to me, that is indoctrination, when you are giving somebody one way of thinking and you are threatening them with violence and harm if they don't believe in it. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying, but like you just mentioned at the end, if they don't believe in it, right? Wouldn't that be a case of opinion, Mark? I mean, I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
No, it's a fair question. It's
Yeah.
Opinion. I don't think science is based on opinion. Science is based on evidence. You might say that it's my opinion, but I don't really have beliefs or opinions on matters so much as I have evidence to back them up, right? So when I look at the age of the Earth, my church taught me the Earth was 6,000 years old. I believed that until I went out and saw evidence to the contrary. I know we're kind of playing word games here, right? But I don't really.
Well,
have this,
I mean, I don't look at it as war games or terminology towards that. I look at it as, trying to get questions from certain people, because like I mentioned earlier in the program, folks, as we started up, I may not know everything about everything. And with rightfully so, due respect to Mark, maybe Mark doesn't know everything about everything, but maybe we do know different things, and that's why I bring people on the show, Mark, to kind of question maybe the motives and the theories behind these statements. You just mentioned something very, very interesting, that you've learned that, I guess if I'm hearing correctly, from the church, that they had stated that the Earth is 6,000 years old. When we know that that's not true. You can go back to, fossilization of early forms of life, and there are fossils that are encrusted into the Earth's crust. And that dates back to, maybe 350, almost 400 million years ago. So, I mean, necessarily saying that the Earth is 6,000 years, well, explain that in a time-lapse period, because obviously back then, time was looked at entirely different. Right? They really didn't have calendars. I think the calendar came into existence, about maybe a few 100,000 years ago that we can think of. But you have to understand that time lapse has been presented a lot differently, right? With the 12 months of the year, 365 days a year. So when you say 6,000 years, maybe they were looking at that as a different time lapse. You know what I mean, Mark?
These are actually modern people that today that are saying 6,000 years old. It's not ancient people. The Bible doesn't really make any claim about how old the Earth is. I don't know if any scripture really does, but these are, to be clear, these are modern day people currently, like you and me, just an hour away from here at the Ark Encounter, who in Kentucky, who are saying the Earth is 6,000 years old based on no evidence other than genealogies in the Book of Genesis. That's Adam living 800 years, which is impossible, 800 or 900. So these are modern people. These aren't people from a long time ago who didn't know how to keep time. These are folks from today.
Yeah. So when you feel and you use the terms indoctrinated, okay, you feel that by that pastor saying that, if you do not support this type of theory, or you do not support the message of God and message of church, you're going to be condemned to hell. That to you, sir, that's forms of indoctrination. I mean, I want to throw that out there because I'm trying to get your understanding of the word indoctrination in that aspect.
So one way to do that would be if I told you had to believe the Earth was 6,000 years old, and I threatened you with hell if you didn't believe me. And this is what I would tell you every Sunday for. I was in that church for well over a decade. Every Sunday, you're hearing, you must believe this way, or you're going to burn forever. I mean, there could be other ways to look at indoctrination, but that to me would clearly be one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. Everyone sees indoctrination a little differently than most. People will look at that, those statements we're saying on the show, messages that we're presenting as sometimes opinion based. And I mean, to an extent, I will give them tolerance and acceptance to that, in some form of another. But again, everyone comes from different types of backgrounds. Everyone comes from different types of walks of life, right? So indoctrination is looked at a lot differently. I just wanted to state that. But I want to move towards a little bit more into the church. Now, when they mentioned 6,000 years, what was your what was your view on that?
Well,
Because
as a
you kind
young
of went into that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, as a young child, you don't know any differently, right? I mean, these are authority figures. These are
Sure.
your elders who are telling you this, so you just take it to be true. And if you don't hear any other opinion, you will always believe that's true. But eventually, I started hearing other opinions as I started taking science classes, and those opinions were things I could go out and look at evidence myself and see, were they true or not, or was there some foundation of truth there? And with the church, it was basically just them telling me, right, that was it. This is
Yeah.
this is the truth. You're not allowed to not believe this.
Oh, you're not allowed to believe it. That's what they said? Like they
You're
literally
not-
went up to you and said, you're not allowed to believe this?
That I'm not allowed to believe the Earth is older than 6,000 years old. That is correct. Yeah, when I walked in and said the Earth was 4.6 billion years old, they no, you can't do that. Satan is talking to you. And if you look up Ken Ham and the Ark Encounter in Kentucky, Answers in Genesis, this is basically what they're teaching right now. They've toned down the hell rhetoric a little bit. They've got merry-go-rounds and zip lines and petting zoos and everything. But if you actually go visit one of these attractions, it's very clear. The first exhibit when you step off the ark,
Michael,
telling you
Savage
that the earth wasn't destroyed in a flood,
Spotify.
then he can convince you the whole Bible is false. And as you leaving, there's another exhibit that tells you the consequences for not believing, right? For the consequences if you don't believe every word of the Bible is literally true.
I mean, I guess I'm hearing a little bit of this, but I want to bring this into play here because I don't know what church said this to you. I mean, it's not like I don't believe you, but I'm listening to the story here, and I'm not a church guy. I'm a spiritual guy. I just don't believe in practice religion, and that's my own personal opinion on that, and I'm entitled to have that. That's what we call this America, right? I'm expressed free speech to express it, right? But again, I don't know what church this was, and you don't have to dox the church if you don't want to. But what about if the Earth is not what they're saying it is, okay, and there's no claim to that? What about if we brought this into existence with dinosaurs? So dinosaurs, with modern scientists, have basically claimed that they are about they range from like 65 million to about 350 million years. There's different periods of existence of different types of dinosaurs, and they range from that age gap from 65 million to about 350 million. So there's a huge gap in between them. Okay, so if the Earth is 6,000 years old, why is the dinosaurs older than that age gap, and why they go back to about 65 million years? Did you ever say, well, what about the gap between man and dinosaur? Like, what's the gap in between?
Yeah, so there's actually a chapter in my book, Journey to Reason, where I walk up to a Sunday school teacher and I say, hey, what about these dinosaurs? They've been around a lot longer. And she told me that, and I'm being completely truthful with you here, that God put the dinosaur bones in the rocks to tempt us. And Hugh Miller was a so-called scientist who wanted to disprove carbon-14 dating. He approached a museum using dishonest credentials, seeking dinosaur fossils. He was finally given some old shards with a warning they'd been coated in shellac and were therefore contaminated. Before they knew better, museums tried to preserve samples in this way, but any high school, college chemistry student could have told him, hey, Hugh, you can't carbonate those samples. There's no fucking carbon in them. Fossilization is the process of minerals replacing organic substances such as carbon. Miller got his samples anyway, got false results, which you'd expect, and proudly claimed carbon-14 dating wasn't reliable. The problem is, the only organic material in these samples would have been the shellac, a substance produced by beetles. So maybe he dated the shellac?
Michael Gardner Uncut.
And I immediately fired back. Yes. And I immediately fired back. I think it was a verse from the book of John that said, God will tempt no man. Now, the modern day creationists, the people who are running the Ark Encounter up the road from me, have a different story. They say that the dinosaurs were actually taken aboard Noah's Ark, that a young pair of dinosaurs were taken aboard the Ark, and all other dinosaurs on the planet came from those two on this boat, right? Everything else, as far as dating, that you and I know to be true about dating the rock layers that the dinosaurs are found in, they say those methods aren't valid. They say they're based on assumptions or bad science. They spend all their time trying to tear down radiometric dating, for example, because they don't really have a dating method of their own.
Yeah, if I may chime in, you're telling me that an actual pastor from a church said that God just put the dinosaurs in the Earth's crust?
Sunday school teacher. Yeah. Again, the story.
Okay, a Sunday school teacher. Yeah. Okay, so he said a Sunday school teacher said that God just put these bones right in the Earth's crust. That's just a figment of our imagination. They really never exist. He just put them there just to kind of test our own theory.
It's to tempt us away from God's word. God's word supposedly said the planet is 6,000 years old. If you don't believe that, if there's any evidence contrary to that 6,000-year-old date, then you have to discard it. And one way to discard it is God is testing our faith, right?
Okay.
So there I was as a kid going, oh my gosh, I believe in dinosaurs, but I'm not allowed to believe how old they are. It was, and I was threatened for it, which is just not a good thing to do with kids. If you want to teach kids, I don't think you need to threaten them.
Yeah. Well, here's something right now here I'd like to ask you on the show. I mean, do you believe that there were dinosaurs here on Earth?
Oh, it's not even a belief. It's a certainty. We have the fossils. We have very accurate methods of dating. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I had to throw that out there because, I mean, obviously you're I guess you could say you're like a man of science now. You believe more of science theories than anything else, right? I'm very evidence-based. I'm not a professional scientist, natural scientist. I'm a computer scientist, which is more like an engineer. But I hate to nitpick, and I don't mean to play word games. When we say believe, that kind of has connotations of some kind of faith, right? You know, maybe I don't. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. There's no. Yeah. I mean, there's scientists that don't believe in faith. There's scientists that don't believe in religion or spirituality. They separate themselves on a different type of caliber.
Completely.
So it's not nitpicking. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because, I mean, you have now a Sunday school teacher telling you that, you know, dinosaurs pretty much didn't exist.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, I haven't read the entirety of the Bible. I've kind of skimmed through pieces of it. It's just, guys, it's just not my interest of reading the Bible. I know there's a lot in the Bible that expresses a lot with, you know, spirituality and Jesus and certain principles that we still hold dear to this day. And there are some scriptures that have presented dinosaurs in the Bible. Okay, and there's other things in there as well too. I mean, I've seen some stuff in there. Yeah, we're getting a little thunderstorms coming through the area here. So sorry about that, Mark.
That's okay.
But what I'm trying to say is, you know, if this is stated in the Bible, right? If it's stated in the Bible, then why are they trying to basically, I guess you could say, debunk it out of existence? That's my question. Like, if it's in the Bible, then why is this Sunday school teacher saying that God just put the bones there just for show and tell? That's my analysis of it.
Yeah, it's a good thought process. The Bible actually, when it was written, they had no word for dinosaurs. They didn't know what a dinosaur was. So the Bible itself, either the original Hebrew or the Greek of the New Testament, doesn't ever really say the word dinosaur. It uses the word Leviathan, which could be any large creature, any large beast. but that's the King James translation is Leviathan.
Prehistoric terminology they used. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, they had, because we didn't find fossils until the 1800s or something. I think was the.
Oh no, it goes further back. I mean, I think the earliest was like probably
the first dinosaur fossil. I thought that was in the 18. Well, I'll have to check. I don't want to.
I think it goes a little further back. I don't have the exact date, but I don't think the 1800s were the exact official date that they found them. I think these go back to like maybe the 1700s, but I could be wrong. But I don't know if it's the 1800s.
I'll have to double check that. But regardless, they didn't know what a dinosaur was. They had no word for it, so they couldn't have mentioned it. But my question to people who are in this young Earth creationist thing is, why does it matter to your faith in God that what the age of the Earth is? Why does that stop you? What does that prevent you from doing if you just admit the Earth is? Because a lot of religions don't have any problem with this. I try to make it clear on show 1. I'll say it again here. I'm not here to bash religion. It's just the fundamentalism, right? These people are throwing down the gauntlet and saying, we want this taught in schools. We don't believe in evolution. We don't believe in a whole lot of things. And therefore, we want public schools to teach our faith. And you mentioned at the start of the show, separation of church and state. That's really what I'm fighting for. If you want to believe that,
I see that. I see the fight, the separation of church and state, and that's pretty much what you're, I guess, you're fighting for, and what you support, right? But before we get into that, I do want to put some plugs in here, guys. I want to say thank you to Brightline. At Brightline, guys, we're all on ride to a destination that matters. Brightline, guys, is putting out some tremendous incentives here to commuters here. It's basically South Florida going into Central Florida. So hat tip to Brightline for making that happen. It was a long process in the making, guys, to set the rail, to make this achievable for everyday commuters. Because there's a lot of commuters that rely on this train now from Orlando down to Miami. So, and you're gonna see a lot more destinations that are being popped up. I noticed Shaky, about maybe 3 stations right now just in Central Florida that is in construction. With the station platforms, the kiosks, the facilities and everything else. And I'm being told right now through negotiation with the state of Florida that Brightline will extend its rails towards Tampa Bay and as well as Jacksonville, Florida. So can't wait for that to happen. Also want to say thank you to another great sponsor here, Progressive Insurance. That's right, guys. Better insurance starts here. Are now recommending this insurance. I have it now. Dropped the entire Allstate insurance with Allstate, and I'm now with Progressive. So thank you very much, Progressive Insurance. Scan these QR codes that we just put up on the program here, and support them because they're putting out amazing service. Both Progressive and Brightline Rail. So back to the show. Mark, I want to touch a little bit of what you just mentioned here. I'm sorry, I wanted to get into a little bit of the dinosaurs and stuff like that you were explained here through that Sunday school teacher. And that's kind of odd. People are saying that even in church that, dinosaurs weren't, they didn't exist. God put them there in the Earth's crust. I find that kind of a little odd and silly because they're fossils. They're real fossils. They're not fake fossils. They're not little plastic bones. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
today
but I wanted
the story is they're putting them on the ark now instead of in the. Today the story is there were 2 dinosaurs on Noah's Ark. So
is that right?
Earth creationist. Yeah, that's today's story. So what I learned or was taught the thing in the Temptation maybe 40 years ago. But yeah, the current story now is they were on the ark. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. But what I was trying to say is I want to let's touch a little bit more with this separation from church and state. Why do you feel that's an important topic or discussion that we need to bring up here, not only on this program of this podcast, but to the entire nation, because it does catch a lot of attention. mainly on the right and the left. And some people on the right are very aggravated with that. Some leftists are supporting it. Some libertarians
Michael
are
Gardner,
on board with that.
uncut,
Where do you
raw,
stand on this?
and savaged.
Well, I am very much of the opinion that we need church and state separated because there are so many religions. I think there are around 3,000 or so. And if we're going to teach religion in school, if we're going to make religion part of our government, which of those religions do we pick? I think a lot of the right-wing people in the United States today would be very upset if we became a religious nation.
Let me jump right into this because the Bible has a long history in our public schools. In fact, one of the first laws in our country was the Old Satan Deluder Act, which was passed back in 1647 in Massachusetts to essentially make sure kids knew the Bible. In fact, it required cities of more than 50 people to have schools to teach the Bible because the need for biblical literacy. And that's been catching on. In fact, I did it in the legislature in Louisiana. I got the Bible as literature into the schools. You really can't understand American history without having some working concept of the Bible.
Nation, and that religion happened to be Islam or Buddhism, right? I mean, when they talk about having religion and the government together, so I'm trying to form my thoughts. They're talking about one religion. They're talking about their fundamentalist Christianity is what they're talking about. So I think it's important that we all be allowed to practice what we want to believe in, but we shouldn't be forcing that on other people through laws. That's really my objection is I don't want to force my beliefs on you through the laws, and you shouldn't force your beliefs on me. So that's why we should keep them separate.
But aren't we already seeing that, Mark, with the force of different communities and different types of movements forced upon others that don't want to support it? I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I mean, I can go into other communities, but I think you understand what I mean by that. And I do applaud you by saying, you know, you're not here to force your religion or your beliefs onto others. But let's talk about, you know, others, right? Because we see others in this nation that are forcing their movement and some of their background onto others, you know, namely the LGBTQ. Now, I'm not against LGBTQ. What you do in your personal life or in the bedroom is your choice, okay? But what I am about is when they peddle it onto our nation, because I find that very disturbing, Mark. Yes, I do.
And I respect the fact that, you know, your opinion on that. When I look at the LGBTQ community, what I see are people who have been marginalized and oppressed, who are coming forward and saying, wait a minute, we're equal to you. That's, you know, my experience with friends and family who are gay or transgender or, you know, so I don't feel like they're trying to force that on me, but what they're asking of me is to accept them just like they accept the straight people, right? And just let them live, because we're passing laws right now against people. I think there were 400 something laws that were passed in the last year, anti-LGBTQ laws. I mean, goodness, you can dress up for Halloween. A man could dress up as a woman and be arrested in some places. I'm not exaggerating. So I'm not sure if I'm giving, you know, the answer that everybody wants to hear, but the movement that I see is really just saying, hey, wait a minute, we want to be recognized. We don't want to go into schools and teach young children to be gay, right? But we do want kids to know that if one of their classmates has two parents that are the same sex, don't make fun of the kid in school. Don't ostracize the kid because, you know, the parents are a same-sex marriage. There's some very basic things there that you're not even allowed to mention a same-sex marriage in I think in Florida, several other places. I think it's not even allowed in school anymore. So, all
right, since we're on this topic, are you getting into some really interesting points of this, which I want to touch on this? You mentioned something really, really, literally right on point with the schools. At what point do you believe that some of this topic should be discussed with children? What is your personal view on that?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I have a specific age in mind. I think maybe educators would be better at coming up at an appropriate age. People who are knowledgeable in the subject should get together. But I just noticed when I was in the first or second grade that people had a mom and a dad, right?
Okay.
If kids notice that, if they ask questions about having two dads, why not address that subject? You don't have to get into specifics. A first or second grader isn't going to understand.
But what I'm trying to say is why are we allowing educators to teach us when it should be coming from the mother and the father? I mean, that's just my personal opinion on that. I mean, I don't think it needs to be discussed, and I'm going to give you my opinion on it because not only was it discussed when I was growing up, it wasn't part of the curriculum in grammar school nor middle school. I don't even think I was learning it in high school, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I knew about, the entire background of the LGBTQ, but it wasn't a necessary part of the curriculum in any part of my education. Teachers were not worried about teaching it because they felt that it was necessary for the parents to make that decision. Now, here's where the disconnect is, where a lot of people are confused and puzzled about this, and why people get so full of rage and anger. Going back to what I just said, I think it's being, and this is my opinion, Mark, I think it's being forced onto educators that need to teach this because of the attention span in the community. Okay, the attention span, meaning that some of the LGBT and some of the people that support that movement feel that their voice is not being heard. So in order for it to be heard, they need to present it more on a larger scale. Okay, classrooms, school campuses such as colleges, and go forward.
How do you talk to them about the Great Awakening, which really stirred up so many Americans into fighting for not only their religious beliefs, but the fact that if you have so much control over your destiny and understanding the Bible, shouldn't you also have the same kind of control over your elected officials? And, the reality is the left wants to rewrite our history. They want to strip any kind of faith out of our schools. They are assaulting every aspect of our society. They want to break down the family, and they want to continue this frontal attack on Christianity. And the reality is it is a historical document. The founders were clear that faith was integral into the success of the country. And they need to understand that because, again, if we're going to keep having America be the greatest country in the history of the world, if we're going to get back on the right track and ensure that this ideology, because we've got to get this radical left-wing ideology out of our schools, but then the other thing we have to do is ensure that we have the proper academics and understanding of our history and what created America to be so exceptional into our schools, so that our young people can not only continue America being the great country it is, but also learn those individual examples that come from understanding our history of, how to make the right choices. So that
Savage.
Now, here's where the disconnect even comes in even further. When you push that onto children that really have an attention span of a pea, literally, I mean, their brains are like a pea. They only can understand so much, and the information comes in at a very, very small little rate compared to a human being at the age of 26. Now, why did I use the age of 26? Because from the age of literally 1 to the age of 26 is where everything is being conditioned in. It's being programmed in to understand what right and wrong is. It takes about 26 years for the human brain to fully develop. That's actually backed by scientific factual information. 26 years. So within those 26 years, if you're teaching early sexualization on basically, if you want to label it as gaytivism and lesbianism and bisexualism, transsexualism, all that stuff. If you want to introduce that to a child as young as 5 years old in a grammar school, that child, I'm going to tell you right now, is going to be very confused on that. And the reason why I say it's going to be confused, whether a boy or girl learning this in a school or classroom, is going to question, well, if this is right, why is my mommy married to my daddy? And obviously the 5 or 6 year old child can distinguish that his father is his father and his mother is his mother.
Mhm.
And why is my mommy married to my daddy and not my mommy married to another mommy? You know, these are questions that get brought up, and
Yeah.
I find that disturbing that it is being introduced to children as young as that. That I
Well,
find it very disturbing. Yes, I do.
actually, I would submit respectfully that children already and when I was in school, first or second grade, in social studies class, I was taught that a family was a man and a woman and their kids. First or second grade. They didn't have to really go beyond that. They didn't have to talk about reproductive systems or how babies are made or anything like that. But yeah, I was taught that it was a man and a woman as early as first or second grade. And I think it would be sufficient, maybe in the first or second grade, I'm just throwing this out there, to let kids know it's not always a mom and a dad. Sometimes it's 2 dads or it's 2 moms, because schools do teach mom and dad right now. It's just subliminal. We accept it. I don't think it's noticed that it kind of flies under the radar, because we all were brought up accepting this as, the only thing that existed, men and women. That was it. But yeah, I don't think you need to go into great detail at a young age, but a kid, I can tell you that kids in my family know of same-sex marriages in our family, and they're not confused about it at all, because they were never taught to be confused. They have grown up accepting this as normal, and I think that's where maybe our views diverge. Is if they're not brought up thinking this is a sin, then they're not going to look at it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of ties into like the separation of church and state. In church they don't teach this. They don't support it. They support a very traditional type of culture where a man and a woman are idolized to one another, and they connect spiritually with a huge amount of chemistry. And I do believe in that. I do believe that whether you look at God or the higher power or the Messiah, he's labeled so many different labels, right, of names.
Sure. Yeah.
I do believe that man and woman were placed on this earth to nurture each other and care for one another and everything else. But, I will get questioned, and I will get, with this statement, well, Savage, a man and a man can share that same expression. A woman and a woman can share that same expression. Mm-hmm. They may, but is it a spiritual connection? Let's get to the spiritual connection now. So is it a spiritual connection that man and that man is feeling? Like when I indulge in the spiritual connection, I'm talking about the spiritual connection from the higher power above. Is that higher power indulging that spiritual connection within the two same sexes?
That would be hard for me to answer, because I don't really believe in a higher power. So when you talk about spiritual on the supernatural level, I just have no beliefs there. I don't believe that there's anybody directing our love or our feelings for each other. If you get a little more expand this a little bit, say that spiritualism can just be this is a circular argument, being spiritual. I mean, my love for my wife, I think I know what you mean when you talk about a spiritual feeling. It's a very strong
bond. What I meant by saying that, Mark, is like, through a connection. Obviously you believe in connection, right? You don't believe that the connection comes from the spirituality of what I'm hearing. So what I'm trying to say is that if you believe in connection, great, but you believe that the connection's not coming from the higher power through the spirituality.
Right.
So if it's not coming from that, Mark, where is the connection coming from?
Oh, it's just our emotions. It's we're humans have emotions, and we feel things. I hate to give such a simplistic answer, but I think that's basically it. We have emotions, and yeah.
Yeah, the reason why I'm going into depth with this is because you have a book out. It's called Journey to Reason, right?
Yes.
Through this journey of reason, these are the reasons behind some of the questions. Because when they go into your book or they go into any other book that's similar to your book, they're going to question you about this.
Absolutely.
And people need to understand, like, well, if he doesn't believe in spirituality through the connection, like, what does he believe then? Like, where does the connection come from? Like, to your understanding, you really don't have an idea of where it comes from, but you just believe that it's a connection. Like, we feel these things. It has to come from somewhere, Mark. I mean, everything comes from something, right?
Well, sure,
Babies come from the woman through something. What is impregnating that woman to have that baby grow into them? It's coming through sperm. It's coming through the process of that. Everything happens for a reason. Where does that sperm come from? Where does that energy come from the sperm to inject into that woman's body, okay, to make that baby grow and everything else? It comes from something. Everything comes from something. So when you say, and respectfully, I'm going to say this, when you say, like, I just believe it. Well, if you believe it, you have to have some type of claim or some type of backing to express yourself of where it's coming from. Like when I put this microphone on this on this rod to hold this, how did it happen? I used my hands, I used my nerves, but where did my nerves get applied to putting this in? I'm a free speaker. I'm a free thinker. I think of these things, and I want to know how the hell I was able to do that. So, I do have some type of analogy of how I did it. Well, I used my nerves. I used my muscles that were powered by something in probably another realm that I can't comprehend. I know it's there. I just don't. I mean, maybe I don't have a backing or a claim to it, but I do have some type of understanding. You understand what I'm saying? Like you when you say that, it's a connection, but you just don't know where the connection's coming from.
Oh, but
you're going to get a lot of people questioned and puzzled. Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't say I didn't know where the connection was coming from. I said that I don't believe it's coming from a higher power. My connection with my wife comes through evidence that she loves me. I see her doing things for me that I don't want to give away personal details, but
yeah,
I through experience, I have evidence that she loves me. I don't have to believe that she loves me. It shows in everything she does, everything she says, and I feel the same way about her. And it is an emotional thing. I don't mean to downplay it. I don't mean to say it's
no. But I mean, these are questions that need to be addressed here to the nation, because the nation's crying out right now extremely at a lot of different types of conflicts.
True.
I just noticed you just put something in here personally that your wife loves you and you understand that there's a strong connection there, and I applaud you. I mean, it sounds like you're living a very traditional life, okay?
Yeah.
And I want that for not only for America but for the rest of the world. Again, folks, I'm not bashing the LGBTQ community. I will give them, and I'll bring this up, Mark, I will give them tolerance and acceptance, okay? But the tolerance and acceptance that I will give them is what they do in their own personal, life is livelihood is their decision. Just like you and I, like what you do with your wife is your personal decision, and that's it. I can't interfere, just like anybody else can't interfere. But where the interference is coming, I want to go back to the LGBT, because I have a lot of heat on some of the rhetoric that's coming out of it. And what I mean by that is now here's where the tolerance and acceptance goes bye-bye. Okay, and it goes back to earlier in my discussion. But before I go there, guys, I want to get a quick break in here because I got to get the breaks in because it's a part of the show. We've been partnered here with Monkey Colt Coffee Company, okay? And I actually had the opportunity, guys, of talking to a very, very well endowed individual. He's the CEO here of the company, Monkey Colt Coffee Company, and he's got amazing products, guys. We put this QR code, this graphic in on your screen if you're viewing us here on video with Rumble, Vimeo, or X. Check them out, guys. It's a small time company. They've been around since 2022, right, Shaky? So just about 2 years now. Like I said, partnered with the show, guys. We have an exclusive deal here with code SAVAGE. That's right, guys. If you scan the code, you're going to get 10% off just by checking them out. Okay. And they are the only company right now that I know of. And Mark, you're going to be amazed by this. Matt Zions, which is the CEO, has put this out there that he believes that he is the only person right now in the United States that is able to infuse alcohol and liquor into coffee.
Wow.
I've never seen it before. So hat tip to you, Matt Zions. I know you're listening. So scan the QR code today, guys, and check out their amazing products. Back to what I was saying, Mark, here with this movement. Okay, where the tolerance and acceptance goes bye-bye is where the peddling comes in. And I think you understand what I mean by this. Now, the peddling is with what we just discussed with the school choice. Okay, I had a gentleman on that's from Florida not too long ago. He's a libertarian, and he's actually fighting for school choice. He's fighting for some of the stuff that we're discussing here in the program with this, and he's against it. Okay, mm-hmm. And I find that kind of odd, and I don't want to throw in party labels, but I find that kind of odd as a libertarian because usually libertarians are literally the other way around. Usually, not all.
Yeah.
But he's fighting for school choice, Mark, and I just think that I know I'm talking, but I'm trying to make points here. I think that's that's a little disturbing where they want to bring it into the school. I think it has a lot to do with, the parents and the parents' decision, not the educators. And that's where you're getting the separation from the education to home.
Well, the question I would ask then is it okay for the school to teach that a mother and father are a natural thing, or that a mother and father make up a family? Is that okay?
Well, that's the thing that I'm against, Mark. I don't think. See, we wouldn't be having this discussion, not just you and I, but just as a national scale. See, we wouldn't be having this discussion if it was never introduced to the school. Just leave it alone. Let the parents decide what they want to teach for their kids. What we should be discussing in school, okay, for kids, is the culture of our nation, how it was founded, and everything else. Because back then, they weren't discussing about LGBTQ, some almost 300 years ago. George Washington was fighting for independence. Yeah, yes, sir.
You could be killed for being gay. I mean, there's gay people have been around for thousands and thousands of years. In Greece, in Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, it was perfectly acceptable. And if I could just step back for just a second,
go ahead. Yeah.
The book that I wrote has like 55 chapters in it, and there's just one chapter on LGBTQ issues. There's one chapter on abortion, and the purpose of those chapters wasn't to try to preach to anybody or convert anybody. The whole book is a series of encounters that I've had throughout my life that challenged the way I was brought up to think. I was brought up to think fundamentalist things like mother and father, abortion is always wrong, et cetera. But there are like 50 some examples in the book. And I fear that we might be giving the viewers here a false impression that the whole book is on this topic. And it's not. These are just... There's literally one chapter. So thank you for letting me get that in. I just wanted to point that out.
I understand that you touched a little bit of that in your book, and I have seen some parts of the chapters of the book, but you mainly focus on separation of church and state. That's
very much.
Pretty much what you're fighting for.
Yeah.
So I want to understand this a little bit clearer. You believe that the separation from church and state should be addressed more? Is that what you're trying to say, or?
It's unfortunately religion is creeping into our national politics. The Roe v. Wade decision was one of them. High school football coach allowed to lead prayers on the 50-yard line during a high school game when he's on the taxpayer dime. again, the anti-LGBTQ laws, all these are fundamentalist religious based. These are coming from religious beliefs. And yeah, it's becoming a problem. And I think people that, like me, who are content to get along with religion and just let people believe what they want to, but we're kind of honking our horns right now and saying, hey, you're swerving into my lane. Do your religion at church, at your place of worship, your synagogue, your temple, your mosque. That's the appropriate place for that. It's schools. There are just too many religions. How are you going to teach them all in a school?
Right.
There are too many religions. How are you and I going to? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but okay, you just made a point. Keep that in the temples and keep that in the churches.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I agree on that.
Yeah.
How about keep the the education to children with same-sex marriages out of schools and leave that for parents to decide? Wouldn't that be okay?
Well, my question again would be, I hate answering questions with questions, but is it okay to teach in school that mothers and fathers are what make up a family? I would just give it the same time and attention that I would give to teaching that men and women are getting married or can love each other. You don't have to sit there and I'm not for sitting children down and indoctrinating them in any way or threatening them or.
Oh no, I never said that. But
no. I'm saying I don't, or when I just, I don't want to force something down someone's throat. But right now, kids are not hearing that this exists, right? If they hear it exists at all, it's something that's evil and horrible. And so yeah, the schools are already teaching that man and woman are okay.
But
right?
wouldn't it be okay to let these children decide when they get older and they have some type of maturity level? Because at the age of 5-6 years old, do you think they're going to have a maturity level of understanding same-sex marriages and relationships?
Of course not. At that point,
that's why I'm saying it doesn't belong in the classroom, then, because of the maturity level. Let the child later in life, maybe in high school or even after high school, to understand that. Not at 5-6 years old. Let them learn things that they need to learn about the birth of our nation, the birth of our Constitution. That's important, right? That's important to teach and everything.
Yeah.
Not what we're discussing right now. So what I'm trying to hear is, and I'm not bashing in any form or another. Okay, I don't bash unless I have to bash.
No, you're being honest.
Like you're very, you seem like you're very cooperative with the discussion, and I like that.
Yeah.
But because I've gotten people on the show that are very, somewhat radicalized, and I'm against radicalization.
I don't
speak on that every
like that.
single
There's too
7
much
days
on
a
both
week.
sides.
But what I'm trying to say is, what you're saying is, that you don't support religion, but you're giving tolerance and acceptance for them to practice that in a temple or a church or a synagogue or all that, right? That is okay, right? So you're given the tolerance to that, which that's great. Everyone should, or at least somebody should at least try to practice that. But you're not giving the tolerance and the acceptance for them not presenting what we're discussing here with same-sex marriages and relationships and to young children. Why is that? Why? Hold 1 second. Hold that thought. Why are you giving tolerance and acceptance to churches to remain with their teaching in the church, but you're not giving tolerance and acceptance to what we're discussing here with children on that matter?
Well, I think the tolerance and acceptance would really be including people like the LGBTQ community, right? If you are saying that they're bad or there's something wrong with them or you don't want kids learning about them, then that's kind of a lack of tolerance, I would submit. You're not tolerating the fact that there are same-sex relationships. And again, I'm not saying that.
But aren't you not tolerating towards religion in that aspect, if I may go that way?
I may be missing the connection, but for religion, I think whatever you want to believe and practice in your home or your place of worship, it's as long as you're not hurting anybody, that's fine. But I maybe
they're not hurting anybody either, the church crowd, and I'm not even religious, Mark, and I know that they're not hurting the church crowd. Yes, there might be some bad eggs and bad pastors and priests and everything that shouldn't be in there, Okay. And, don't get me started with the whole Catholic religion, because I have a gentleman that comes on this show every now and then, and we talk about, the Pope and everything else, but that's an entirely different episode. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't think that they're hurting anybody. They're teaching about religion. They're not doing it in a heinous way.
Could I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I think it was in Florida. This was just in the news the other day. A woman had a child that was going to be born without fully formed lungs. The child was not going to live. And she couldn't afford to leave Florida for an abortion, and Florida wouldn't let her have one. So she was forced to deliver that baby and hold it for 90 minutes while it died in her arms, which everybody knew was going to happen. So I would not agree that people aren't harmed by this. There's another case in Ohio where a 10-year-old girl was raped by a family member and wanted to have an abortion, and Ohio wanted to force her to have it. She went to Indiana and got one, but now the Indiana conservatives are after the doctors who provided care for this young girl. So I can come up with instances of harm. They may be easy to overlook, but the abortion bans are religious bans, effectively. So, yeah, just something to think about.
I get what you're saying. And that's, I guess it's what is it linked towards church and religion? Are you going that aspect, or?
Yeah, I mean,
I was a little bit. Yeah,
sure. I was taught, because I was 10. There's a chapter in the book, the chapter when I get into abortion, Roe v. Wade, and I was 10 years old when that was passed, and I thought it was horrible that people were killing babies, and I grew up thinking that, all the while suffering from the contradiction that God slayed all the firstborn children of Egypt. He wiped out children and babies in this global flood. So I had this, but I did, I ignored all that bad stuff in the Bible. And I went into my life thinking that, abortion is really horrible. And I was just really forced at one point to look at this and go, are there cases where this is going to save somebody's life? And that was it for me. It's not a trivial decision. I don't take it lightly. I don't think it's just women who can't. The thing they said in my school was women who can't keep their legs closed. They always blame it on the women, but yeah, I just think that there are enough cases where it's her body. It's her body. Yeah. Sorry,
it's her body, her choice, right? My body, my choice. We've heard that countless times of this movement, but we also heard my body, my choice with the entire COVID movement, which, we will give tolerance and acceptance to people that are fighting for abortion rights and the whole Roe v. Wade movement behind that. But that's okay. But what's not okay is when we go and say, my body, my choice, and I just don't want to get that jab because I just don't trust the science behind it. When we say that, that's a different story. It's not about our body or my choice. It's about compliance through the federal government. So I get what you're saying, but what I'm trying to say is with the abortion rights, okay, I am for abortion to an extent, if the woman was raped or she didn't consent to sexual activity. That I do believe. Okay. But what I don't support is when you have just straight up recreational sex between couples, and that aspect. Okay. And don't get me wrong, Mark, you're entitled to do whatever the hell you want to do with your body. That's your entitlement, right? As a human being. But I feel that, everything we're discussing, even on the national scale, is going way out of control with this abortion. Things could be done a lot responsibly with people, but if you go up to that nature, they're going to give you that, well, it's my body, my choice. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. But just think about as a human being. See, that's the thing. That's the disconnect that we see on the world here, in the world, is the disconnect with that aspect of, well, I'm going to do what I damn well please, and if I want to have sex, I'm going to have sex, and if I don't feel like being a mother or having a baby, I'll just have an abortion. Okay, great, but think as a human being, okay? Because everyone has a heart, everyone has a mind, and think of it, for doing the right thing. Okay, if you're not responsible, okay, and I know this is a hard pill to swallow, but if you're not responsible, to proceed with that proceeding and giving birth and going through the whole pregnancy process, do the right thing. Like put it up for adoption, because there's so many families out there that can't have babies and they would love to have that little infant to nurture and care and call it of their own, right? Their own little family member. Do the right thing. And people don't want to do the right thing. They just want to go the easy way and just abort the baby. To me, that's murder.
That may be the right way for some people. For other people, it might not be. I don't know their circumstances, and that's why I hesitate to intervene. There are women who can't carry the baby successfully. There are women who can't afford to raise the children. We have a real problem right now with funding for any type of child health care, any kind of family services, any kind of public aid to these mothers who are giving birth. We're cutting all that off. I personally know people who are they're being told they have to go out and work at minimum wage jobs and find home care, in babysitters or daycare for their children, and they can't afford it. And in Kentucky, unfortunately, once that baby comes down the birth canal, we call not me, but a lot of people call them welfare babies or welfare mothers. And society's not always willing to take care of them, especially if the child might have some birth defects, or possibly it has, I hate to say this, but I will, the wrong color skin. People are really selective. They want that perfect baby that's just right for them. And unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. And as far as sex, that's just a natural human thing. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but I talk to people who are, and this is something that humans do. We're sexual creatures. What people do with their bodies as far as sex is completely up to them. I don't think it's really fair to ask somebody, hey, don't have sex unless you're willing to have a baby. We have ways to prevent.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
I'm for birth control. We could solve a lot of these problems with effective sex education and birth control, but we don't want to teach that in school either for some reason. We don't want to. These kids are becoming sexually active at a very young age, and they have no idea how to prevent a baby. So I think there are ways that we could all agree on.
That's some of the side rhetoric that you just mentioned, with them working so many jobs and I think you mentioned skin tone and everything. That's just the rhetoric, the side comments that come up, which absolutely has nothing to do with it. Some of these side effects, birth effects that are happening, can be resolved very, very easily. What you're mentioning here, and I'm making assumptions. I don't know these people's personal lives, but through my experience and how I see it with some of these birth effects, that could be resolved. Birth effects usually happen from maybe women that are heavily intoxicated on alcohol, liquor. They're mixing drugs that shouldn't be going into that womb, because you got to understand something. Everything that I'm mentioning right now will result in birth effects: heavy smoking, recreational marijuana use, regular recreational over-the-counter medication that could cause very, very toxic health levels to the baby as it's developing in the womb. Everything, all that could be resolved by not even partaking into that activity. So that's an easy resolvement. We got that out of the way. Okay, women that can't carry long, well, that can also be resolved as well, too. As she's going through that pregnancy, she should be following up with her doctor, right? Getting the correct procedures so she can carry full term without any types of effects. That could be taken away. But see, some of this that doesn't get addressed right now, Mark, is some of these people that just don't go to that avenue. Maybe because they're misinformed by their, by their what do they call that, Shaky? The mother, right? The second mother. I forgot that term there. I had a brain fart, but I think you guys understand what I mean by that. The nursing mother. I think that's what they used to call it back in the day, but there's another word for it. So, I mean, all this could be resolved. It's an easy switch, but people don't want to partake in this, Mark, because they want to use excuse. Well, I can't carry because I just can't carry. Well, there's a reason why you can't carry, is because maybe the birth effects that you're experiencing is because, sadly, and I'm going to be honest, you're a very unresponsible soon-to-be mother, and you're doing a lot of narcotics that's causing these birth effects.
Michael, I would be honest too. I'm thinking of one person in particular who I think might be emblematic of America. She had 4, 5 miscarriages. She never did drugs. She never drank. She didn't do any of the bad things you're talking about. Never smoked, but she just couldn't. The doctors told her, "Don't get pregnant. It's dangerous to your health." But she wanted a baby so bad, she kept trying, and it ended in failure every single time.
She never done drugs and never done any of that during the pregnancy or through the process. But let's look at some of her medical
through 4 or 5
background.
pregnancies. 4 or 5 pregnancies.
Let's look at some of her background before she decided to, get pregnant. Has she ever done any of the recreational drugs, or was she a heavy smoker early in life? No. Early in life, Mark. That's what I'm saying.
No, how
was her life earlier?
She didn't smoke. She didn't. No.
And you got to look at the family history. Like, I mean, she's.
Yeah. Well, this person's in my family, so
when you make statements like that, I have to go back to see what the family history is. Is there cancer that run through the family? Is it diabetes? That can play a part later in life if they do.
No, there are a lot of health conditions that can keep women from having a baby. I forget the number, and I'll ask for the audience's forgiveness if I get this wrong, but I think 25% of all pregnancies fail. I'm confident enough in that number. I actually will give it, and then I'll admit I'm wrong later if I'm wrong. But I think 25% of all pregnancies fail. It's a pretty significant number, and the birth defects that I'm talking about, things like Down syndrome or other serious conditions, cannot be helped with science. So once that child is born, you're on the hook for it.
That it can't help with the situation now. Maybe later down generations after generations through scientific research, we can clear that out. I had a gentleman on the show that we were discussing about medications with side effects. We're not at that period right now as a society of the 21st century. I mean, this may happen, but not in our lifetime through scientific research. We may get past that part. It's an entirely different episode. I just wanted to throw that in. As we close up with you, Mark, with part 2, I want to touch a little bit on this heartbeat. I want to make sure I had some time here as we discussed it. Now, on part 1, folks, Mark and I got into the heartbeat detection, possibly the heartbeat detection and his views of at 6 weeks. Now, I mentioned that in part 1. I wanted to mention in part 2 because what you had said, Mark, I kind of was questioned and puzzled by some of your statements that you made with the heartbeat not being detected at 6 weeks.
Yeah. You
mentioned that you're hearing vibrations from the Doppler machine and through ultrasound machines, and you're not hearing the heartbeat. Why is that, Mark? Go ahead.
Well, at 6 weeks, the heart has not formed yet it's not a fully developed heart. The heartbeat sound, and when if I could throw one correction in, I said you can't hear the heart beating, right? I mean, you can detect what's developing, but a human heart has 4 chambers and it has some valves between it, and they open and close and let blood flow through. That's what you hear if you go to the doctor today and put a stethoscope up to your chest. If you're 6 weeks along, that heart has not formed yet, so it cannot make that sound. And the only thing I'm trying to say here is that it was sold to us, the 6-week abortion thing was sold to us as, oh, the heart's already, you can hear the heart. And that's just not accurate. And this isn't my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but this is what doctors will tell you if you question them, and they're going to be honest with you. Yeah, at 6 weeks, the machine itself, the Doppler machine, is sending a sound wave into the body, just like a submarine. You've seen World War II movies with the submarines sing out the boom, and they get the echo back. Maybe not the best analogy, but I'm going to go with it. The Doppler machine is kind of like that. It sends a sound out, it gets the echo back, it looks at the difference in the frequency of the sound when it went out and came back, and it creates a sound. Internally, the machine creates the sound.
Yeah,
and that's the point I want to drive home.
Yeah, what doctors are saying this that it's not a detection at 6 weeks?
The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, there are about 60,000 members. They've got some pretty excellent online material that you can go through if you're questioning what I'm saying here. But they will tell you, the doctors there will tell you outright that it's misleading to say that you're hearing a real heartbeat, a human heartbeat as you and I know it at 6 weeks.
Well, I would challenge that statement.
Please look it up.
Because I mean, there's a lot of medical websites that you can go through, and folks, I highly encourage you. I live by the terms a lot here on this show. You want to trust, but you also want to verify the information.
Absolutely.
Never trust one source of information, whether you use Google. Most of us use Google. 90% of us use Google, right?
Yeah.
Trust but verify the statement. Now, if Google's saying this, and a lot of search results will say this on Google, if they're not saying this, okay, and they're saying something different, similar to what Mark's saying, go to other sources like FreeSpoke, Getter, DuckDuckGo, other sources. Now, if the other sources are saying something entirely different and they're matching, okay, and those are like 6-7 other types of search browsers through medical journals and organizations that are backing the claim. If they're saying something entirely different and Google's saying something entirely different, well, it's more or less, it just doesn't make sense, okay? It's not accurate. Now, you said 6 weeks. It's not detected at 6 weeks. You're hearing more vibrations in Doppler machines. I went back on part 1 and I said, back in biblical times, they didn't have Doppler machines, nor did they have ultrasound machines. Okay, so they weren't. They couldn't detect the vibration because the technology wasn't yet invented. This was 2,000 years ago, Mark. We'll go back even further. We can go back to 8,000 years where there wasn't anything. Let alone anything during biblical times, mainly in Israel and everything else in the Middle East. So they didn't have the machines back then. What in the hell were they hearing then? They were hearing something, weren't they?
Hearing it when? At 6 weeks?
The mother, excuse me, let me rephrase that. The mother would be hearing something coming out of her baby in her belly. She would
at 6 weeks?
Hearing at any point of that.
Well,
right close to 6 weeks. I'm saying, I'm using 6 weeks for an example because usually around 6 weeks is when everything starts coming into play, right? Everything, you can start feeling things start moving and everything else. So obviously back then, she didn't know if she was hearing the heartbeat. She probably was hearing vibrations from the baby itself. Okay, so what were they hearing back then? That's
I don't know that we have any evidence that anybody heard anything at the stage we're talking about.
I know we don't have evidence, though, but what I'm saying is human evolution hasn't changed that rapidly in the course of that short period of time. So, like, they were hearing something. The mother was hearing something in her belly. She was feeling it. That's what I meant to say, right, Shaky? Yes, I put the correction in my words sometimes. she was hearing the vibrations in her belly. Okay, those vibrations could have been a heartbeat. They could have been hands and arms moving. It could have been possibly an organ developing. Okay, she was hearing the vibrations. Okay, but fast forward now 2,000 years later, that mother, okay, is hearing the same type of vibrations then?
I guess I still have the question.
You're mentioning machines that's being
Yeah.
confused for some of the detection here.
Yeah, because there's this emotional argument that at that point you have this whole little person inside you with a fully formed heart and everything, and that's the point I want to make. Is there's kind of a tug on emotions, a little bit misleading there, but I still would have to question, or I would love to. I'm not saying you're absolutely wrong. I'm just that you encourage your listeners to investigate and learn. And I would be very interested to hear of any reports from even a couple hundred years ago, not a little over 1,000, of someone at 6 weeks actually hearing this developing embryo and fetus. It's an embryo at 6 weeks. I've never heard that. I've never encountered it because I don't think it's really happening that early. I'm willing to be proven wrong.
So as we close out, a lot of scientific medical research studies show between 5 to 6 weeks that and I want to make sure I present this on the show correct, guys. I'm not a scientific researcher myself, but I do want to put somewhat of facts in here as I'm reading this here. I have it on my tablet here, guys. Before about week 8 of pregnancy, a doctor may refer to the fetus as an embryo, okay? Cardiac tissue starts to pulse at around 5 to 6 weeks of pregnancy, registering as a heartbeat, okay? Though the heart has, it's not fully developed yet, but it's starting to come into play. 1 second, Mark. I see you chiming in, but I got to put that into play there, okay? It's starting to develop, okay? You're hearing pulses from early growth of that developed heart. So around 5 to 6 weeks is when it starts coming in. You're hearing the heart. It's not fully developed just yet, but you're hearing the early forms of the heart in the baby. The baby is starting to create a pulse behind that. So that's coming from a lot of different types of medical journals.
Right.
Around 5 to 6 weeks. Now, if they're saying between 5 to 6 weeks is when the heart starts to fully develop, and you're telling me that's not true or not necessarily accurate, in your own analysis of how you see it, Mark, as we close it up, when does that pulse start to happen?
Well, there's a thin vein going through the cardiac tissue that is pulsing at 6 weeks. Between 6 and 10 weeks, the tube starts to fold over on itself and eventually develop into a heart, which takes much is a relative term. But yeah, so I think you threw in accidentally the word fully formed. Between 5 and 8 weeks, it's not, and also
it's not fully formed. I said it wasn't fully formed. It's starting. It's starting to develop. It's not fully. I mean, the heart isn't fully enacted between 5 to 6 weeks. It's starting to come into play. It's growing.
It's just it's a
but
vein.
There is a pulse. There is a pulse that they're saying here through the tissue that you can see. It's not fully developed just yet. No.
Right, but I know you need to. We need to close, but you can't hear it with a stethoscope or some other passive device. Just like the submarine pinging earlier and sending out its own sound wave and picking that wave up. If the submarine doesn't send out that sound wave, you just go put your ear up to the side of the submarine wall, you're not going to hear that big rock wall coming at you. Same thing with an ultrasound. If you don't project that sound into the body and pick it up when it's reflected back, you're not really hearing it. You're hearing an artificial representation, and that's the point I'm just trying to make.
Yeah, I would challenge on that because that's a pulse, my friend. That's not a Doppler machine. That's not vibrations of a machine. Yes, I mean, there are vibrations coming from the machine as it's working.
It's sending the sound out, and they actually have instruction manuals online that explain how these machines work. You can actually look up the medical manufacturer, and they will tell you that no, you're not hearing a sound. You're hearing a sound coming from the Doppler machine. Unplug the power, take the batteries out. It doesn't work.
Yeah, but I mean, so in your aspect, when does the pulse actually happen? I have to ask that question.
It is 6 weeks. There is what you're calling a pulse. There is a little vein there that's throbbing. That's the pulse they're talking about. And I would encourage people not to take my word for this. You can find reputable sources that will tell you that you'll find diagrams in medical textbooks.
So you are saying it's a pulse, but back in part one, you were telling me that it's not the actual heartbeat that's making the pulse. It's not a full. When you say a heartbeat, okay, it's developing. I get it. I'll give you that. But it's developing. It's not a full heart just yet. But as it's developing, obviously, folks, I mean, the baby's developing in the mother as it's going through the process. Yeah, of course, it's common sense. But it's not a full, just healthy heart just yet. But it is giving a beat that detects as a heartbeat. It's a pulse. So if you're agreeing that yes, it is a pulse, Savage, but it's not coming from a heart, where the hell is it coming from?
I'm being very literal here. It's coming from...
I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think clarity is really important here in saying exactly what's happening. There is a small vein, that they call it a heart tube, that's pulsing. You can't hear it unless you use an artificial means. It just hasn't developed far enough yet, okay? At 6 weeks, it hasn't developed well enough to make a sound that you can pick up with what you and I associate with a heartbeat, with the stethoscope, excuse me. Right, that's I'm trying to be very clear.
So you're trying to tell me that the stethoscope, I can't even say it myself, is pretty much manipulating that sound?
Oh, not manipulating. No, when you go to the doctor and hear your heart, if you ever take a stethoscope from your doctor next time, listen to your heart. You're hearing valves opening, close. You're hearing blood being pumped through chambers. That exists in you and I because we're fully formed.
I'd love if you have some insights with some of these doctors that you had seen or maybe you had spoken to. I'd love to have them on the show so I can get a little bit more of a clarification with this, because I mean this is important. I mean, like if they know something that I don't know. Or, I mean, I was taught that, around 5-6 weeks, this is it. That's not only was I taught, but it's covered in a lot of different medical journals.
Yeah.
Now there's an entirely different. There's an entirely different medical journal, Mark, that basically you're saying that it's just not accurate. So I'd love to talk to some of these doctors that. I mean, do you know them personally, or is this doctor?
My instructors when I was a pre-med student, but I would try. Because you're well known, you've got a good show. See if you can get somebody from ACOG, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, on the show, because they're the ones who could really talk about this. I'm not here to give medical advice or present myself as authority. I'm telling you what like ACOG would tell you. So if you could get somebody from them on your show, they could explain this probably with a little more authority than me. But yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap it up, guys. I want to thank Mark Alsip for coming on. Got into a lot of different types of topics. Sometimes some of it was a little tense, some of it was heated. I just have a passion, guys, on I believe what American values and traditions should be. And some people don't see it like that, and I mean, maybe that's their opinion, And I don't think these are facts, Mark. These are opinions. You're entitled to have your opinion on what your views should be, and with education and science and religion, and that's your opinion. Not necessarily mean that they're right opinions, and they should be benefiting America. It's opinion. That's what we need to get back in this country is that most of what we discuss is opinion, not necessarily meaning that it's right or wrong. But I think you understand why some of us get a little enraged with some of the dialogue that comes in. But thank you very much for coming on. If you want to plug anything, the floor is yours, sir, as we kind of depart here. I know you have a book that you wrote here. So go ahead.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure being on. I know that it got a little tense at times, but I appreciate exchanging opinions. The book is called Journey to Reason. It's available on Amazon right now. Kindle Unlimited people can download it for free. And I promise the viewers that only 2 chapters of the entire book really cover what we've talked about here today. It's more a book of discovery, being challenged to look at ideas that I was taking for granted as black and white, and seeing there's some gray there. But yeah, Journey to Reason. Check it out if you care. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks very much for coming on, and until next time, guys.